Welcome to Sliders and Wings, a podcast about the TV show Sliders.
And the TV show Wings.
And all the other forgotten TV shows of the 90s.
I'm Valerie Temple.
And I'm Rachel Cox.
Hey, Rachel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
See, we never can decide who says good evening first.
I know. It's just a mess in the beginning. We'll never get it right.
Well, some people just record one intro and then they just
reuse it? What about you cheaters? Got to introduce our guest. We've got a returning guest of the show. Emily Wade is back in the guest seat. We're so excited about it.
I guess I'm in the guest seat, but Valerie, you're in my house. So.
That's right. So I'm actually in her guest room right now. So I'm both a guest and a host.
So we are here to discuss Love and War, which was a faint memory for me when, I think you put it on the list and I was like, that sounds familiar. I don't think I watched it.
It's such a generic title for a show. It's just nothing really.
There's that additional confusion that they had a different leading lady in the first season than the other two seasons.
Which I don't remember at all. So Emily and I...
Did you pick this, Emily, that you wanted to watch it?
I sort of did. After I was on talking about Wings, obviously I watched a lot of Wings, and Amazon Prime helpfully recommended to me that it was did you know that Love and War is on here? So I dipped into it. So I was prepared to talk about Love and War.
But I can't believe this is on Prime. That's bizarre.
Yes, it was a show that only lasted 3 seasons, but there is only the last 2 seasons are on Prime. The first season isn't on Prime. It makes no sense.
I didn't know that. That's even weirder.
Yes.
By the time I watched the second season on Prime, I thought, wait, why was Val sending me a YouTube link for the first season?
Because the first season is scrubbed from history. Because Susan Dey was the original lead, and it seems Emily sort of did some research on this, but it seems like Susan Dey got lawyers involved and was since I got fired from the show or whatever happened, she was it will not see the light of day.
Wow. And then it said that Annie Potts was mad about it being canceled at all and that she's still mad about it.
What? Really? Who cares?
I sent you a link to her IMDb bio. And she said she's still upset about it.
I saw that you sent me the link to her bio and I was like, yeah, I know who Annie Potts is. I didn't understand why you sent me. I was like, I like Annie Potts.
I guess I don't know why I'm assuming that you just immediately read all of the links that I send you all the way through, but
no.
Okay. The last line is a brief period. This is the last thing in her bio, basically. A brief period in Love and War ended with the cancellation of the show, about which she remains resentful.
Wow, that's so...
She's been married 4 times.
Annie Potts has been married 4 times?
Yeah.
Cool. It does sound like Annie Potts herself has a lot of experience with both love and war.
Susan Dey, I know she was in the Partridge Family in the 70s, but she was on LA Law. But she seems like she was around in the 90s a lot. I must have seen her in a lot of other things. What was the big one?
Well, I think LA Law was the big thing for her, us knowing.
Could not have watched LA Law. I think I just know it from the commercials.
I was aware of it. I knew Corbin Burnson's name for whatever reason. It's why would I know this name?
The LA Law was beloved. I feel like parents loved LA Law.
That was my impression, that my memory of LA Law is just that's for parents, and parents
I sort of watched it with my parents, but it was really unmemorable.
So the bartender in Love and War, Ike, he was also on LA Law, correct?
Yeah, he was a
judge on LA Law, and then
I read that 3 hours ago, and I'm already. Forgotten.
This whole show is so unmemorable. The only thing I remember about the show is that Emily watched this show, or you talked about this show. That's what I associate it with you for some reason.
Well,
for your sins, I guess, right? You're why?
I think that what's funny is this show is the reason that I was lame as a kid. One of the reasons. Basically, the CBS Monday night lineup, because it was The Nanny, Murphy Brown, and it was Love and War, and they were up against Fresh Prince was in the Murphy Brown slot, and then
Blossom
was Love and War. And I watched the geriatric shows on CBS and then had nothing to talk to middle schoolers about. But I did have a blossom hat.
You can't. Those were unavoidable.
I was like confidently wearing the crushed velvet flat in the front hat. However,
your heart was with CBS.
Yeah. So anyway, I loved this show because I loved the idea of New York.
Yeah.
A place I have never lived.
A comedy about a woman running a bar/restaurant in New York City while maintaining a tempestuous romance with an egotistical opinion columnist.
The conceit is so flimsy. What is this show about?
So we watched 2 episodes, both of us, right? We watched episode 4 from season 1 because that's like basically the only episode from season 1 that has seen the light of day since Susan Dey turned off the lights for season 1. And then we watched episode 1 of season 2 because there's a big cast change and, you know, kind of wanted to see the difference. And Emily and I were watching these episodes together, and we're watching this episode 4 of season 1, and we were kind of arguing. We were like, are you sure this isn't the pilot? This seems like the pilot. Like the way everything is introduced, the way they're talking to each other, it really seems like it's just setting up everything.
In thinking about it more, I think it's so much that the ensemble simply did not gel in any way that it really feels like a pilot. It just feels like people who have never met.
Yeah, that's so true. And also there are some people where I was like, I don't know why they are talking to each other at all. The lady who was smoking, Meg, she's smoking in the bar, which was my most 90s thing.
Most 90s thing was the commercials, but they weren't technically part of the show.
No, you can say them.
There was an anti-abortion commercial. There was like a gay people are adopting babies. It was all Christian moral panic.
The gay baby boom.
Wait, so that wasn't the pilot?
So we actually, I referred to my giant encyclopedia of television shows. And in the pilot, our character Wally, played by Susan Dey.
Suggestions on what Wally is short for?
It's Wallace.
Oh, okay.
Wallace
Beautiful.
Wally Porter.
Okay, gotcha.
In the first episode, she ends up at the Blue Shamrock. She's a recent divorcee. She gets wasted on too many like vodka drinks and then like buys a share of the bar. So like that's the setup of the whole, you know, and she's like having sassy banter with poor benighted Jay Thomas, who deserved better. You know, pretty basic premise for a first episode of
the name Love and War, and like Jay Thomas being in it, and then him being some sort of kind of cultural writer, political writer. It seems like it should have been like a Mary Madeline, James Carville thing, because so much of the dialogue is about men and women, and women's independence, and women want to do this, women want to do that. Like it's had a political vibe to it. But then she's like, I like food.
Yeah, she's a chef. Yeah, it doesn't really tie in together very well. It's very flimsy in that way. Like it could have been a lot stronger, a lot easier. There was this very, very forgotten movie from like I think the mid to late 90s that I loved, but no one else remembers, that would have been a better premise for this, which was called Speechless. And it starred Michael Keaton and Gina Davis, and they're speechwriters. Mm-hmm. And he's working for the Republican and she's working for the Democrat. And oh my gosh, there's a lot of fireworks between the two of them. It makes a lot more sense for them to be rivals or something. It's weird that he's like this writer. He's got his best friend, Meg, who also hangs out at this bar. And they're supposed to be writers, but they don't seem to be doing a lot of writing. It seems weird that the main setting of the show is this bar.
So my theory,
Jay Thomas is dead.
Oh yeah, he died. I was very sad about it.
What? When did he die?
Like a few years
2017.
Oh
yeah, it was very sad.
He wasn't that old.
He was 69.
I was thinking about it more, and you know, this show is like a Diane English show. It was the creator of Murphy Brown. My theory is Murphy Brown, they always went to Phil's, the hangout, like the bar. And so I think that what she was thinking was, I want to have like a New Yorkie version of Murphy Brown that's just only about the watering hole. But it's like, if it were 2 journalists, then it's just Murphy Brown again.
Right.
So I think that the kind of cop out was, well, we'll make a person a chef because it's happening in this bar/restaurant. But the problem is the only jokes that sound confident in the show are the political ones.
Yes.
Because that's clearly where their interest is.
Where
And
they're
it's
writing
like,
from. Yeah,
they don't actually know anything about food.
Who knew that in 1995 there'd just be so much comedic gold mined from just the existence of Kissinger, Henry Kissinger.
Yeah,
so many Kissinger jokes.
A lot.
Oh.
And I also just don't believe that Henry Kissinger would ever go to that bar. Like the Blue Shamrock, it looked like shit. It's supposed to be like her big opening. It just looks like a Irish pub.
Well,
like it just doesn't look.
The other thing is, I'm 99% confident that I've actually been to the bar that this is supposed to be, because it's very near where you catch the like Bolt bus back to Boston. And the thing is, the neighborhood it's in will always be a bad neighborhood. It will never be a good neighborhood. It's just like it's a crappy part of New York. Anyway, That is another thing that makes this episode feel like a pilot, is the fact that they are clearly not talking on the phone to another person. And there are so many phone conversations that are just
exposition.
Like fake phone conversations.
Right.
Embarrassingly so.
She's calling Henry Kissinger Tubby, Kissinger.
Tubby Kissinger.
They tried to work in as many like New Yorky people as they could to just like hit home, like, this is New York. And she's like, I guess, supposed to be like an up and coming chef or like a well-known chef. I don't, not sure, but she has a Rolodex of people. And so there's Henry Kissinger, Stephen Sondheim, Gore Vidal, and then we've also got Woody Allen and Mia Farrow.
Oh God, I know.
Yeah.
But the weirdest thing about the whole show is the talking directly to the camera, which is so off-putting.
Which obviously they
ditched right away.
They dropped that.
Did we know if they did it throughout the first season?
I think they did, but again, I remember watching Love and War. Like I remember watching it too, but my memories of it are it's just snatches of very brief memories. I just kind of remember Jay Thomas. And I also remember Joanna Gleason, the redheaded lady at the restaurant. And in my memory, she was like a big star. Like she was like the sassy lady. And I always thought she was hilarious. And she's like barely in these episodes and none of her jokes really land. So I don't know why. Like my memories of it it was like a completely different show. So I don't even really remember the Susan Dey season at all. Or maybe I do. And like, I just remember those two people and that's it. So I like really can't.
But by the way, Joanna Gleason has red hair. Meg has red hair. And isn't Annie Potts a natural redhead? Yes. At the very least, she has redheaded energy. So this is like big redhead energy in this show.
Huge, big, huge.
Every woman on the show is a redhead, basically.
Yes. I mean, well, they're fiery. They're all fiery. Susan Dey cannot keep up with all of that fire,
She's also wearing a backwards ball cap.
Oh God.
Like she's Bart Simpson.
She's so stiff compared to Jay, who's so not stiff.
Yeah.
Except for where you want him to be. You know what I'm saying? That's our horny segment.
Yeah.
He's so adorable. He's like a teddy bear, like an Italian teddy bear.
He is cute. Yeah.
Oh, Jay Thomas.
He was so popular on Murphy Brown that they kind of developed this for him, right?
Yeah, he played Jerry Gold on Murphy Brown.
But like, wasn't he the possible father of Avery?
Yeah, he was the father of Avery, and he plays kind of like a proto Limbaugh kind of like conservative talking head.
That's kind of what you wanted for this, where it's like, oh, okay, like he's the Republican, she's the Democrat. Like that's what they were doing on Murphy Brown. So I guess that's what they couldn't really do that for this. But it's more interesting that way.
He's just like not dialed up enough as a person. All the dialogue's extremely overwritten, but it doesn't give him a personality.
There's so much overwriting here, especially those talking to the camera, we're breaking the fourth wall. There's just a lot of like pontificating about.
I was so unnerved when that started happening. I couldn't tell if she was talking to the audience or if she was just talking to herself, because she was like looking at her clothes. And then when he did it, I thought, oh God, they talked to the camera.
It's excruciating. It's terrible. Even with that high concept sort of thing going on. Then there's also the actor ex-husband quoting Shakespeare. It's just like a lot of stuff stuff happening, and it's none of it's interesting together. Like nothing really happens in that first episode we watched. It's just really boring.
I mean, she fails. That's what happens.
Yes. She fails. The way that they put together the episode, it just didn't work at all. She has this big restaurant opening, but then he can't come. So then she's upset about it. But then it seems like during those segments where they're talking at the camera, it seems like he's not actually busy with the thing he said he was busy with.
Well, yeah. So he was supposed to be writing an article for Newsweek about like the 92 election. I think that like kind of the only really funny scene, and it wasn't funny, but it was kind of the only funny scene, was when he was procrastinating in his apartment and he's clearly watching porn in like awkward shorts.
Yes.
And like eating
Cheetos
with peanut butter.
He says, who cares who's president anyway?
It wasn't actually very funny, but it was the only funny part of the show.
That was the night before. I don't think we ever see what he's doing during the opening.
No.
Hopefully writing the article.
He was supposed to be writing the article, but then he like shows up. She's getting a back rub from her ex-husband, and he's like, I'm gone for one day. And then like they're like, you know what that means? We need each other. And I was like, that's what that means?
They only been dating for a month. And I guess me as like an old married woman, I'm like, why am I watching this? Yeah, like watching a show about people talking for half an hour about their 1-month-old relationship. Shut up.
I know, exactly.
They're not like they're 20-year-olds. They're like 40.
Yeah, they're full adults, and they're kind of acting sort of like teenagery, navigating this relationship as if it's that interesting.
And then all the people at the bar are interested in their relationship and how are they doing and how's the relationship going? I'm like, oh my God, get a life, everybody.
Well, my favorite was how quickly the people at the bar seemed to write off Wally in episode 1 of season 2.
Oh, that was so harsh. Like she had left that day.
Yes. And they're like, fuck her. And then they're like,
get over it.
By the end, they're just like, hey, this new lady who walked in, Annie Potts, it seems like you should date her. It's like, Jesus, it's pretty rude.
I mean, it didn't seem like they had any more chemistry than him and Susan Dey did.
I think she just has more comedic
she's better.
Yeah, she's more of an interesting character. Susan Dey in the first season just seems like a really, really budget version of like a Meg Ryan character. Like she even had Meg Ryan's hair, and she's just, I'm wearing a backwards baseball cap. That's my character. There was nothing really interesting about her besides that. So at least Annie Potts comes in hot, and she's fiery, and she's wearing a crop top. She's yelling at people. She's just real funny off the bat. And so at least that's something.
Okay, I know we haven't done this show yet, but Joel Murray, who plays the other guy who hangs out at the bar, Bill Murray's brother, he had a big role in Dharma and Greg. He was saying basically how he liked the Annie Potts character. Like, she's so feisty.
He was like, she's a wild one. She's real wild. He kept saying wild.
She's wild.
She's a real wild one.
Well, what was funny is that there was like a whole joke where she didn't know his name. And I'm like, I don't know his name. But I guess at that time I might have watched a whole season about him. But wait, I remember that he had like a girlfriend or something who was like opposite. He played a lawyer on Dharma and Greg.
He was also on Mad Men as well. Very good on Mad Men.
He's also kind of like ageless. I feel like he always looks exactly the same.
Right, exactly. He's part of this ensemble where Meg, this like political journalist, is just sitting at the end of the bar with this garbage man.
Meg, by the way, who just is Murphy Brown. It's like they took all of the like balled up stuff on the writer's room at Murphy Brown and just like turned it into Meg's dialogue.
My big observation of the show, and it actually applies to lots of the shows that we've watched so far, is this is so much like theater.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching it, and the scenes conversations go on for so long, and it seems like I'm looking at my watch like, how long is this going to take? Everything feels so slow, and I'm like, it feels like a play. That's what it is. And I guess you realize how much TV up until 10 or 15 years ago was still so theatrical, and now it's more like the internet. So TV used to be theater, and now it's the internet.
I mean, they used to call them teleplays. That's really what they were doing. Now, with single camera, you're kind of not beholden to these like 3 big sets that you have access to. His apartment, her apartment, the bar. Now you can go wherever you want. So it really opens the story up and the storytelling up.
Val, we are doing academic research.
Yeah, we
now.
are. Yeah, we
are. I mean, for a book, I guess. I mean, where is this going to go? We've got to preserve this knowledge we have.
I definitely feel like I am going to become like one of the most knowledgeable people about 90s TV just through this project, because I thought I knew about 90s TV before this, and now I just feel like it's under a microscope.
So we got to start a foundation, get that nonprofit money.
I think so. I mean, like, I'm learning so many facts. Rachel, who else is on the Home Improvement Wikipedia page and finding out that the original name for Tool Time was Hammer Time? They'd called it Hammer Time in the script based on the popularity of MC Hammer at the time. No one else knows that.
I want my PhD.
Exactly. Give me my honorary degree.
There's nothing that interesting in this Wikipedia, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely not.
It was on Monday nights.
It was on Monday nights.
Can I just actually like point out something that I've really realized in having had this conversation?
Yeah.
I know why I remember this show fondly, and then watched it and realized I don't know anything about it. It's because I was doing homework when I was watching.
Oh, yes.
I was a procrastinator, and I was doing my homework at like 9:00 at night when this show was on, and I was like listening to it while doing homework. I watched it and I was like, I loved this show. Why is it the worst show I've ever seen? It sucks so much. It's because I was like hurrying up and doing all of my homework while watching the show.
And I think these older style shows are actually pretty good for someone who's only half paying attention, because there's not any like visual gags that you're missing. Like these fast paced things, you're listening to people talk a lot. And so you're just sort of like kind of following along, ha, chuckle, 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 you know?
It's like blind TV. You're just like, that's what a blind person would be listening to.
That's exactly right.
Val, I think we should start ranking the shows.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Since we don't really have that much more to cover, let me read the shows we've done, and you guys say which ones you think are the top 3 in terms of, we're just talking like based on today's standards: Sliders, Wings, Father Dowling Mysteries, The Single Guy, The Pretender, Picket Fences, The Torkelsons, Sybil, VR5, Lois and Clark, Blossom, Roar. This is too many to remember. I realize that now. Xena. Well, which ones stand out as being good? Caroline the City, Evening Shade, Jusha, Herman's Head, Dinosaurs.
Okay, so I think
Caroline the City we concluded was good.
That was good. Sybil was good. Dinosaurs is also good.
I'm going to add a new column in our spreadsheet for ranking.
Okay.
Honestly, I actually rewatched The Pretender and didn't particularly love it. I would say on that list for me, it'd be.
We did like The Pretender.
Yeah, I would say that would be.
You guys did. I listened to that one. I think it would be like Sybil, Lois, and Clark, and The Pretender.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that we should do one for comedies, ones for dramas?
I think that's a good idea too.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go back into it.
I still think Wings is the best of all of those.
No, I don't think so.
I love Wings.
No, of the comedies we've done so far, I think Caroline the City and Sybil are the top 2.
What about Mad Magazine?
You know,
Let's just stick with my standard, Love and Snore.
Yeah, Love and Bore.
Love and Bore, Love and Snore. Let's just stick with that.
I mean, it's just like Dinah Snores, Dinah Bores.
So far we've got Roar, Dinosaurs, and Love and War, and we can use Bore and Snore for all of them.
Bore and Snore for all of them, yeah.
Accent Corner. So Annie Potts, I do think like you can tell she's having a hard time sticking her New York accent because she's from the South.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one that was on Designing Women for years.
So speaking of commercials, that first episode we watched was on YouTube, taped off of TV. So there's all these commercials. And one of them was Annie Potts for popcorn. And she's like sitting in this big cloud of bags of popcorn.
It's a sexy pop secret ad.
Very sexy pop secret ad. The set design of it was so incredible. It looked like it was a heaven made out of bags of popcorn. Her accent was like it seemed like she was hitting a little hard just to try and overcome the Southern accent.
And then the interesting thing about Jay Thomas is that he kind of sounds like a New Yorker because he's from New Orleans, and people from New Orleans don't have Southern accents. They have kind of like a New Yorkish accent. I think like the Irish and German immigrants went to New York and went to New Orleans at the same time, and the accent, whatever. I'm making things up. I don't know.
It could be true.
I've heard it. Just counting down till we can talk about what you're watching. Emily, are you watching Mayor of Easttown?
No, I'm useless
Okay.
to you on that.
Okay. Have you seen Ted Lasso?
Let me just fully explain what happened because Love and Lore is involved. After we did Wings, after I watched Love and War, I watched 6 episodes of season 2 of Love and War. I hated it so much that Amazon Prime then recommended some like Japanese chick lit type show to me, like a Sex in the City, but Japanese. And I fell headlong into Asian television, and I haven't basically watched a show in English since like February.
These are straight up like, not soap operas,
They're
but
soap
like,
operas. I've watched like 50 Asian soap operas. So I'm like not up on any of the shows of today.
Emily made me watch one of them, and I'm happy to report that I enjoyed it. It was definitely not something I probably will continue watching, but
a lot of attractive dudes.
Very, very, very attractive. Everyone's attractive on those shows.
Yeah.
And like they're very light and fun and filled with pretty people and little silly situations.
Yeah. So I'm like vaguely learning small amounts of Korean.
We're watching this show. What's it called? Her Private Life.
Her Private Life.
It's about a woman who is a curator at a museum, but then in her off time, she's a fangirl for a boy band. And she's like specifically obsessed with like this one boy. And she's like clearly like way too old to be this fangirl.
And hilarity ensues.
Ensues. Emily was like cluing me in on all of the Korean slang. And like, she's like, oh, so it's like Oppa means boyfriend / big brother or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
The pandemic has broken me, and I only want to watch stuff with happy endings now. And you can't doom scroll on your phone when you have to watch subtitles. So anyway,
I like Parasite. That was a Korean movie.
That movie rules. Yeah.
It's very good.
Speaking of movies that have won Best Picture.
Oh, hey. Are we going to talk about Nomadland?
Yes. Emily, have you seen it?
We walked 2 miles to play miniature golf yesterday. Valerie's visiting me in Boston right now. She like complained to me about Nomadland for about 1.5 miles.
She won't mind if we spoil anything.
Okay, good.
I actually like spoilers too. Like about me, I read ahead on everything. Spoil anything. Life is too complicated. I need to know outcomes.
Yeah.
So my impression of Nomadland is, yes, it's a long, boring movie where nothing happens. So it didn't seem like an unusual indie movie in that regard. I mean, there's tons of long, boring indie movies where literally nothing happens. And so the only thing really notable about it is that it won the Best Picture.
Right.
I think what you said you didn't like about it was there's no
conflict.
There's no friction. There's no conflict. No one is like stealing her van or raping her, or like nothing really bad is happening. Everyone's just like, life sucks, but nothing too bad is happening.
I feel like this movie is secret conservative propaganda because it is very much like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. All I want to do is work. I just want to be a contributing member to society, and society is broken and it won't let me.
Is it really that hard to get a menial job, or is it because they're old, or is it because they're in the West? Like, because it seems like there's plentiful menial jobs here.
Right, exactly. But I also feel like this character seems to be willfully staying in that situation.
Yeah, no, that's clear. Yes, she could have stayed with this or that person, but she would not have been supporting herself. She would have been living off other people. I think the point is that she doesn't want to live off other people. I mean, isn't that okay?
But like, don't you think living with her sister for maybe 6 months would have allowed her to, I don't know, get her own job that would have paid better?
I also had many, many questions about this character and her husband, and like, why did they have children? Or like, was it, in the beginning, you can't tell if they have children. Like maybe there's someone out there that she's just, because you don't know anything about her. So there's 2 things about me that made me not hate this movie. One, I've been obsessed for years with van life, because I just felt very stuck. And like, when you have 2 kids and you can't go anywhere, the more you can't go somewhere, the more you want to go somewhere. It's like, all I want to do is get in a van and drive somewhere. I did try it out one weekend. We rented an RV with the 2 kids, and it was the worst weekend of my life. We came back early. It was horrible. I couldn't sleep in the bed. You drive up a hill and all the plates in the cabinet were rattling. We couldn't go more than 50 miles an hour. We couldn't go up a mountain. Everything took longer. It was, oh my God. But we stayed in an RV park. This is like 2 years ago. We stayed in an RV park outside of Lancaster, and I met these people that are living in their RVs because they don't have any money. I mean, like
Sure.
I saw these real people that were living in this RV park, and it was incredibly depressing. It was like late September in the woods of Pennsylvania, and there was just some old people chain smoking outside their RVs, and they had nowhere else to go.
Right.
I find just, the idea of minimalism and like putting all your, like the whole hippie thing, I find it interesting. I don't think I could actually do it, but it intrigues me.
I feel like the movie has like a cultish representation of this van life where it's like, isn't this utopian? I don't think it seems depressing to me. This is also like, as a person who grew up very poor, this just seems like rich people slumming it.
You thought they were romanticizing something that
yes,
is not.
I
get that.
really felt like it was a romantic view of something that like the people who were making it didn't know much about.
Well, it was just based on a magazine article.
I know.
I mean, like all movies are based on magazine articles.
Anyway.
The other thing I was going to say is that on the one level, I am very interested, and I spent a lot of time on, people living in vans and RVs and stuff. So I was like interested in the camper vans and the whole vibe. And like, I'm also very interested in the West because I've never really been out there. I've just been to LA. And
so when I was 11, my family drove out to California from Columbus, Ohio to visit my uncle. He actually lives in Laguna Beach. We drove in a van all the way out there through all of those states. And it was like 12 people packed into one van. And so I think maybe that experience also was like, what's not cool? Living in a van. I feel like it was too close to my actual experiences, but so far away from what it's really like that it kind of like really, really hit a false note for me.
Also, the sister relationship, I have a sister, so like I like that part because those relationships are long and they're kind of hard to describe. And like I was definitely very intrigued as to like what was going on with her and the husband, that she just like left her family and like barely talked to them. And I don't know. I mean, like there's all sorts of interesting things that probably happen that are weird, but they don't tell you. I think the movie also, I think that she adapted the tone because some of those people are real people. Like the woman playing Linda May is a real person. And then that guy who leads the group is a real person. I think when filmmakers do that, then they're more like gentle with them because they don't want to criticize the actual person. So basically my viewpoint is like, I thought it was fine. It wasn't too long. I could probably watch Frances McDormand walk around a storage unit for 3 hours.
That is a good point. It was documentary style. So like they have all of these people who are real people and they're really doing it. So they don't want to make fun of these people.
But I agree. It felt more like a documentary than a narrative movie. I thought it was fine. No Academy Award winners have really made sense to me ever. So, I mean, I'm not really shocked by anything winning or not winning anymore.
Definitely better than Green Book. So I watched Green Book just because I was curious. It was, you will not believe what happens in this movie. It is just crazy.
I remember that many years ago hating that movie. Was it Crash that won?
Yeah.
And seeing that, and it won, and probably it was that and combined with Titanic winning that I was like, what is this award?
It's meaningless.
Valerie and I spent high school together like every Friday and Saturday night at the movies, and we were like really invested in it for so long. And I think I just got burned so many times that it's like, no, I really don't care anymore.
I didn't watch the Oscars this year.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I can't go a minute longer without hearing you lambast Ted Lasso on this podcast. Please, well, God.
I feel like you're going to be a little disappointed, but...
Did you change your tune as you watched it all?
Well, okay. So the first episode, I hated it. I hated it so much, Rachel. It was terrible. It just was so lame. The jokes were lame. It just felt like a long commercial. You really saw all of the Apple products. Hey, this is a Southern guy in England. What are English people like? Hey, did you know they like tea in England? Let's make a joke about that. It was really boring to me. Like everything about it was just really cliche. Him as a character, especially the first episode, it just made my skin crawl. I'm just a good old boy and, look at me, I'm just a sweetheart, and it really made me like roll my eyes into the back of my head until, I could see my own asshole. That's how hard I was rolling my eyes. Most of the jokes were bad. There were a couple in the first episode where I was like, all right, that one's okay.
Greg and I laugh sometimes.
The one that I like wrote down that I just remember was he's at that press conference and they're like, do you even know any like football players? And he's like, yeah, Ronaldo and the fellow that bends it like himself. That made me laugh. The fellow that bends it like himself. I was like, okay, all right, that was pretty good. And then after that first episode, I was just like, okay, this is trash. I just was not looking forward to watching more of them. But I got the fucking Apple TV 7-day trial, which it was so hard. Like it took me.
You were laughing at me last week because I said I couldn't figure out Apple Pay.
No, Rachel, it took me like a half an hour. I didn't know my password, and then it like asked me.
I told you.
It asked me these security questions, and one of the security questions was, what's your favorite children's television show? These are questions I filled out like 15 years ago. Like this is something that I have had signed in and have stayed signed in for decades. I changed the password and then I put in the new password, and then it asked me, okay, now what are your security questions? And I was like, I already don't know them. So then I was like, okay, maybe I'll like make an Apple ID for Aaron. So I was like, fuck my stuff. I'll make one for him. So like I tried to make a password for him, and then they were like, okay, we're going to email you and give you a code, and you have to put that code in. And I was like, okay, fine. Emailed them the code. And then they're like, okay, now that we've emailed you the code and you put that code in, we're also going to text you a new code. And so we have to put that code in. And I was like, okay, fine. And then that ID was created. And then they were like, okay, now you have to sign into iTunes using this before you can. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. All to watch this show that I knew I wasn't going to like that much. It was a freaking nightmare. So
well, if Apple wants to know why their subscriptions are down, we could tell them.
It's because it's impossible.
The one thing that Apple's failed at.
Rachel, you're going to love this. I get into Apple TV and I couldn't figure out how to find the TV show. And I'm scrolling.
Sounds so old.
I know, but like it sucks. Sorry, it sucks. And so then
thank you. She said last week, Rachel, you sound so old.
I'm also just as old. They need to go back to the drawing board. You're gonna laugh though, because I was like, where is even the show? And then it looked like it was the show. And I was like, well, why doesn't it have episode numbers? It wasn't the show. It was Ted Lasso, and then just little clips. And the clips were like 3-minute long clips. And it was Ted Lasso's top 10 most inspirational moments. And I was like, God damn you. I fucking hate this. I did watch more episodes.
It grew on you?
I still don't think it's a good show. Watching more episodes, I didn't grow to hate it more. Like I just sort of was like, eh.
I think what actually annoyed me the most, I mean, it just seemed like a really cheap show. Like only 2 people work at this soccer club. The owner and her assistant. No one else works there. Right. And then like she's like, hey, maybe you could do the social media for the soccer players. Because they don't have anyone. This is like a national club. Till that moment, no one had ever been doing their social media accounts or their press or PR or anything. I realize now that there were all those scenes where she's sitting on her laptop, and I'm always like, why does she have nothing on her desk but one laptop? And now I realize it's an Apple place.
Because it's a commercial. It's a commercial for Apple. Everything is a commercial.
But to me, the signature of a show being really cheap is when a character just seems unnaturally isolated.
Yeah.
So this rich woman, millionaire woman, has no friends, no support staff, no one that lives with her, no personal assistant, like no one in her life, because they just couldn't afford any other actors, I guess. And then this rich woman who's played by Juno Temple, model,
like a glamour
girl about town, and she has no friends, right? This woman has no friends whatsoever.
That's why she and like the lady who owns the football club become best friends, because they're the only 2 women in the show.
And then the other thing I hate is that the other soccer player, Roy, who I did find very attractive, by Brett Goldstein. He's so hairy.
The one guy, Jamie, did say, why don't you take off your sweater before you take a shower? I thought that was funny too. It's like, okay.
But that actor's 40, right? This guy's supposed to be like around 40. His character development is that like that he's only ever had one night stands in his whole life. And he's like, no, I'm ready for something serious. I'm like, really? In the past 20 years, it has never occurred to you to to get a girlfriend.
Nope.
Until this woman suggested it. Okay, good. All right. Well, I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, but like his wife wants a divorce because she can't stand him anymore, understandably.
And then he has a panic attack.
He has a panic attack because she won't stop texting him to sign the papers. I'm like, lady, are you getting married tomorrow to someone else? She's just bugging him nonstop. Like he's in another country.
The whole she wants a divorce. There did not seem to be much of an explanation as to why.
I was, kind of somewhat arguing with Michelle. There was no conflict in the show, and she was saying there was. And I'm like, I think this is what they came up with for his conflict. Like, let's just make his wife want to divorce him and he doesn't want to get a divorce. That's the conflict.
But like,
because I'll tell you right now, that woman would not have wanted a divorce.
Yes,
he's too nice. Fuck off.
I know. She goes to visit them and she's crying because she's just like, I'm just trying to remember when it was good and now it's not good. And she's like, what? Like he didn't do it. He's just like, all he's been is like super sweet and nice this whole time. And she's like, you're just making it worse because I used to like you and now I hate you. And like, why do you hate him though? Like, I don't get it. It seems like he has not changed.
And that woman who plays her friend that shows up, that character.
I know.
Everything about it was just so forced. Like they have dinner and then everyone's like, I thought you were going to get the check. Oh no, you get the check or something like that. And it was just like, oh my God, they couldn't come up with a better joke than letting the rich person take the check.
I mean, the jokes on this show are like British people like tea. I mean, it sucks. The jokes aren't great. I don't think it deserves the acclaim it has seen. Like, I did see that it won 3 Writers Guild Awards, and I was like, how?
Yeah, again, if I had just stumbled on the show, I would not have thought twice about it. It's because it was specifically recommended by so many people.
Yes.
That is the problem.
And like strenuously. People
Which is basically the problem you have with No Man Land. If it was just some movie, you wouldn't care.
Yes, although I still think I would not like it.
But that's what really gets your goat.
Yeah. It's not like these are the worst things that have ever been made. It's just that they shouldn't be so universally praised.
Val, we could have a Siskel and Ebert show.
Okay.
A half in the bag show. Let's talk about movies. So I don't really have anything to say about Mayor of Easttown. I mean,
I think we should save it for next week when the show wraps up and then we can really go into it.
I have to say that I lived in Philly for 15 years and this accent has just been something that we all just laugh at. Like, oh my God, that accent. But it's funny that I think watching Kate Winslet and Evan Peters do the accent and watching it on HBO glamorizes it. And now I think it's cool. So TV has rotted my brain. Greg and I went to Delco today to like look at a house to potentially like move to. And we're like, oh, look at over there. Oh man, what's that doing over there? Oh my God, that's a big fence.
No.
And I'm like trying in earnest to do the accent, like to fit in or something. Like,
stop
oh
that.
God,
stop
now I think it's cool.
My friend Michelle, who used to live in Mount Airy, Michelle with the twins, she used to live in Mount Airy and now she moved back home to Ohio. And all I can think about that is like, well, you saved your kids from developing like a hugely disgusting accent. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
R.I.P. J. Thomas.
J. Thomas.
Yeah, J. Thomas deserved better.
His IMDb was pretty depressing. I mean, I felt like he was kind of like a big star.
I remember him in guest appearances on other shows and just being like, oh yeah, him.
I had a massive crush on him.
Yeah, he was just like very memorable to me as a kid.
Yeah.
And
he was on Mork and Mindy. That was his first job.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I might just dip into season 3 at some point, just out of curiosity to see if they ever find their footing. It does seem a little weird to me that Annie Potts would be mad that the show got canceled. Like, maybe it did get better, but yeah, I watched 6 episodes of it, and bless him, Joel Murray, he does his best to actually like get Annie Potts to like him, and it doesn't happen.
Oh,
so like,
that's
just so
really
you know.
depressing. I don't want that.
Yeah,
he's
so
such a sweetie too. We did get a brief Adam Goldberg appearance.
Oh yeah,
I was happy to see him. He was kind of a tough guy, so he was wearing a tight white t-shirt with cigarettes rolled up into his shirt sleeve, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm listening.
I remember he was so hot in Saving Private Ryan.
Oh my God. He's hot in a lot of stuff. So thumbs up. This is our hunk minute. One last thing about Love and War is that we talked about how they just sort of, even though they spent a whole season with Susan Dey as Wally, first episode of season 2, she's practically dead to them. They're like, oh, fuck her. And the reasoning is just Wally voted for Perot.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I like
Something I gotta tell you.
I voted for Perot. I was like, oh, I miss Perot jokes. So that was nice. Anyway.
Didn't he die this year?
Did he?
I think so. Good night, funny man.
We live in a world without Jay Thomas and Ross Perot.
Perot.
Wow. What are we going to do? All the hunks are dead. Let's sign off. It's good.
All right. Good night.
Good night, Emily. Thank you, Emily. Good night,
Yes,
Rachel.
I'll
Thanks,
see you in the next
Emily.
room soon.
Bye.
Bye.